Hi, I'm Steve. This is Stevie. We're gonna start mocking up our new turbo on this little Kubota 2203 IDI engine we're gonna put in our Ranger. I had a Saab turbo on it that was a little too big and it wouldn't give me quite as much boost as I had hoped for, but we'll start mocking this up. I got to make some plates for the turbo pipe, and I'm going to use that and make a stencil out of some gasket paper and a small ball peen hammer. So let's get started. Okay, stuff like this, I do a lot of stuff with a cutoff wheel like this. These, you get a lot of use out of these. They do a good job. Cut your main shape out. You don't try to get too exact unless you have straight lines, of course. That's what we're going to do with this. Get it cut out and get ready for mocking up the turbo pipe. Okay, we're going to center punch these holes so we get a good hole to drill. Here we are, we've got all our pieces made up, all our flanges made up. Got to have your manifold gasket. We're going to put that on here. Here is our flange. We've got our flanges built for the turbo also. So bolts are going to go in here. So the turbo is probably going to have to sit at a little bit of an angle like this because of the bolt layout. So I'm going to have to make a turn on the pipe with a couple of wedges, but it's going to sit like this. I won't know exactly until I get the motor back in the truck, so we can start mocking this up. And this is what it looks like. We've got our flanges built, so let's get it put back in the truck and we'll start mocking everything up and see if we can make some smoke. Going to finish up mocking up the pipes and the turbo to put on this little Kubota Ranger. What I've done so far is clock the center section of the turbo so that the exhaust flange will be vertical and the oil drain, which I've still got to put in the pan, will be facing down. If you don't have your drain set properly on these turbos, they'll cause problems with filling up the turbo and pushing it past into the compressor housing. So I've made this a little turn a long time ago, and I might have to modify it a little bit. It's just a bunch of sections that are cut into wedges with a proper size pipe and tacked together right now, and it's made it into a turn. These are my flanges from earlier when I cut out the gasket paper. So what I'm going to do is center this up on the flange, get it squared up, and tack it on. And then I got to get my other flange welded like this so the turbo will mount. This side is the exhaust manifold side, and obviously this is the turbo side. I'll be using a paper gasket in here right now because I can't find the gasket that I got from the junkyard. So until I find it or order a new one, I'll be using this paper gasket. I'm sure it'll burn out. So let me go ahead and get this mocked up, and I'll be back. I just got my the turbo pipe built. I had to build this screwy thing so that the turbo would set in here with enough room for everything to fit, the intake air, discharge air, and the downpipe. So I've got to build the downpipe next, and the intakes should be pretty straightforward, but I got to build the downpipe, and I've got to take the pan off and put a drain in here. I've got my pressure line here that goes up to this one here. It's a water-cooled turbo, and so I'm gonna probably end up hooking up the water to it and see how she does. So hopefully it'll build a little more boost. I'm not looking for ultimate performance, just a little more boost than what I had. So all right, well, let me get started on the downpipe, and I'll show you that when I get there. Hi, I'm working on my downpipe, and I've cut some wedges to make the turn, and it looks like I hit it pretty close. I did it a little coarse, but this pipe's not real big. I hunted around and found some old stainless that I had, and that's what I was wanting to use because the stainless holds up so much better under high heat, right coming off the turbo. So this is what I want to build the downpipe out of. I flared this with the end of a ball peen hammer, just because on the bend, when they bend it down with a tubing bender, it always crushes it down a little bit or pulls the pipe tight. So I didn't want a bad joint on each one of these, so I flared it out just a little bit so it would meet this first 25-degree wedge that I cut. So I will start tacking them on and making sure they're heading in the right direction and test fit each one. So alright, well, let me get started and we'll go from there. My downpipe roughed up, mocked up a little bit. I'm bolting on the flange right now. I'm going to make sure that it'll center on the bolts and everything best I can, and then I'll tack it in place, pull the assembly out, weld it up, and then see about putting it back on and put a tack on the rest of the exhaust system to the downpipe and see if I can get away with it. And and then after that, if it all turns out right, we'll be finishing it up, hooking up the cold side pipes, and go from there. Excuse me. Back mocking up the turbo on this thing. We just wanted to show you the oil lines. These are the stock lines off of the Volkswagen Passat. I just had some transmission line that's pretty high pressure around, or bought some for the oil pump to feed the turbo, and the drain line. I see a couple guys making kits to go in the dipstick tube. That's what I did. I turned down a piece to hammer down in there, and it's quarter pipe on the top. It's 3/8 inside diameter. I drilled it out a little bit. I used a steel one, so I know it would take a little more abuse, but I'm not convinced it's going to drain enough, but I'm hoping it will. So I've got a transparent piece of vinyl tube on here, to vinyl hose, to see if it's backing up. So if it backs up, you don't drain it enough, the turbo will burn oil on the compressor side. It'll bypass a little bit. Okay, another thing I had to do was, this is the dipstick hole. Luckily they configure these to fit in several different vehicles, and so I'll be utilizing, I put a dipstick hole on the opposite side, and I had to clearance my brackets a little bit so that I could use it. They put a plug in them from the factory, and you can just switch your dipstick from side to side, whichever one you need. They do that a lot on these little industrial engines. So hopefully that'll work, and we're going to test it out. As long as we don't have any oil backing up in the line, we shouldn't have any problems. So at this point, you know, I've got one more thing to do before we put it in and make smoke. So we'll see you then.